Hey, remember when you were a kid and you'd be shocked to like see your school teacher at the grocery store? Because we all thought teachers just were bored teachers and lived their whole lives inside the classroom. But it turns out that a lot of people that are called to teaching chose it and left big, lucrative, successful careers in other fields. Like a couple of the teachers you're going to hear from in this episode, Brooke and Patti, who gave up careers in banking. And then there's Kristin, whose daddy was a teacher, and she swore, I will never. But you know what? She did, and that's straight ahead.
We always have an odd one in the crowd.
So it's kind of odd.
Decidedly odd.
Doesn't that strike you as a little bit odd?
No, that doesn't strike me as a little bit odd.
It's the Bob and Sheri Oddcast, with stuff we wouldn't, couldn't, or shouldn't do on the regular show. Now, here's the Oddcast.
Teachers were really a critical part of how we turned out. You know, we don't come from anything, either one of us. And anything that was ever going to happen for us, we had to kind of make happen. And a lot of that was in the classroom. For in very different ways, for very different reasons. Teachers were my safe grown-ups. They were the people that told me what I could do instead of what I couldn't do, who told me what was possible instead of impossible. And for Lamar, teachers were the people who said, now, son, we're going to need you to stop talking so much to your neighbor. Or you're not going to learn a damn thing.
The teachers used to, years and years and years ago, it's not a one-room schoolhouse, but years ago, teachers would come to your house and they would sit down with each individual parent and student and talk about what their expectations were for the year. And after my first grade, starting in the second grade, every teacher that come to my house, they would sit there and they would look and they would say, Mrs. Richardson, your son talks a lot. And my mom would say, take a drag off it. She says, yeah, I know. I have to listen to him all day, you know. And I had so many teachers that were just like, can you shut up? No, I really can't, you know. So, and I passed it on to one of my kids. He got in trouble. He was talking, and so the teacher moved him up next to her desk. And she kept him up there for 2 weeks. So after 2 weeks, she said, okay, I'm going to move you back. If I move you back, can you be quiet? He thought for about 20 seconds. He goes, nah, just leave me here because it's not going to change. So, but luckily, I found a place I could talk, so I'm good to go.
And I just learned something just in the last couple of weeks shocking about Lamar. Lamar did not go to kindergarten. Kindergarten didn't exist where Lamar lived.
That was for people with money. What are you talking about? We had no money.
Did anybody else in this room not have kindergarten?
Not mandatory in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Not mandatory. So you just went from the womb to first grade like a pack of savages?
Yes.
I'm noticing that all the people that didn't go to kindergarten in this room have the biggest personalities. I wonder if there's a...
We learned that between the ages of 5 and 6.
Yeah, there might be, maybe, because I remember what I learned in kindergarten was mostly how to stand in line and be quiet. And I'm starting to think maybe that's not the best idea for
that
some
ship
of
had
us.
already sailed. It wasn't you.
There's no line.
Yeah.
So who wants to go first, and why is it Brooke? Brooke is a counselor, so tell everybody a little bit about what you do.
I am a school counselor. My career up until the last 6 years has been in a pre-K through 12 school. I live in a very rural area, and just the last 6 years I've been in the hometown where I grew up, and I'm their high school counselor there.
Is that the high school you went to?
It is.
Is it trippy being now the grown-up in charge?
It is, and thank God they just passed a referendum to get us a new building because it is still the counselor's office that I went to when I was in high school, which is really, That's
weird.
So what are, you have a couple hundred kids.
I have 250 kids in my school that I'm responsible for. Yeah.
That's reasonable, right? That sounds about like a typical day for y'all.
Yeah. And since it's a rural school, in large schools, the kids kind of get broke up and then you have certain duties. I get all of those. So I get to get them ready for college, take care of their transcripts. I build the master schedule, register them for all of their classes. when mom and dad are fighting, getting divorced, I do all the socially emotional. When kids don't get breakfast in the morning, they come to my office, or, they have the early lunch at 10:45 and then practice right after school. Come on to Miss Deppie's office, let's get something to eat. It's kind of the hub of the school there, and that's the best part of my day. When it's Teacher Institute Day and the kids are not there, I don't want to be there either. They're so much fun.
So how long have you been in the high school counseling situation?
Just the high school alone, 6 years, but 16 years altogether.
So 6 years, so you rode out COVID too.
Oh, yeah.
So what have been some of the challenges pre and post COVID with your kids?
We'll try to counsel kids when they're not there.
Yeah.
That was hard. And I think trying to get them scheduled and what they needed to do in that time was hard, because communication was so limited, And now that they're back, I think we're going to have our last COVID class next year, where I'm hoping that anxiety and they had choices for so long. I don't have to come to school, or I can do school online, and it was kind of hodgepodge there. So they're kind of getting out of that where they need to be there. But, getting kids to stay in school and not drop out is tough right now.
Yeah. And I bet you hear some wild versions of what people want to be when they grow up. I mean, there was a kid in my graduating class who was absolutely committed to becoming a magician. Mm-hmm. And so it was a Catholic school, and our guidance counselor was a gentleman named Father Pete Sullivan, who by the time they put him there had lost all interest in human children. And so his reaction to being told very earnestly that I'm going to be a magician was not the most enthusiastic. So what are some of the things the kids tell you?
Oh my gosh. Well, they all think they're going to go to the NFL or the NBA.
Is that not the truth?
And they might be really good in our hometown, but my hometown is not that large. So when you get in, that's not going to happen. Or they want to be actors. They all want to make a lot of money and not have to do a whole lot. One of my favorites was a kid that was like, you know what? I want to own a dance club. I want to have like those girls in the skimpy and the guys that are ordering the $5,000 bottles of champagne. And I'm like, we don't even have any. What are you watching on MTV? We don't even have something like that around here.
But he could be the first.
You could be the first, and let's get you some business classes, buddy. Because you're gonna do some. You got high hopes, and somewhere between here, the Mississippi, and that club, you're gonna find something. So it's taking them what they're passionate for and making it a little bit doable.
And you can't, it's the job of our parents to shoot our dreams out of the sky when they're unrealistic, right?
Yeah.
But you can't do that.
No, and nor would I, because here's the thing. When I was a kid, I knew I wanted to get into social work or to counseling, and I had so many people tell me, no, that's not what you want to do. So I had, from when I graduated high school, all the way until I had my children and stayed home with them, I did an array of, I was an investment banker. I flew all over America managing portfolios and doing things. And then when I got home with my kids, I was like, oh, I could keep doing it. It's a great job, but that's not what I want to do. Now I get to go to school every day. So I don't want to be that person like I had that told them you can't do what you want to do.
Because you can.
Because you can. Yeah. It might not be that great star in the sky, but it's somewhere in between. And as long as they find their happiness, that's what I try to push with them. As long as you find something where you don't have to work every day, that's what you want to do.
And I bet it was really great for you to get out of investment banking and start making the big money as a guidance counselor.
Thank God for that cushion. This is not coming out.
Well, Brooke, thank you so much. And I can't even imagine having a caseload of a couple hundred students and being responsible for everything, including breakfast and snacks. That's a lot. Round of applause.
Thank you so much.
Patti had this amazing career as a mortgage banker. Regular, predictable hours. She didn't have to bring any papers home to grade. Nobody gave her pink eye. But inside Patti's heart was another voice. And that voice was saying, Patti, there are some kids, some exceptional kids who need you. And we need you in a classroom. So jump in, start with what made you choose teaching as a career?
Well, as I said, I was in mortgage banking for 25 years. And when they shut down our facility, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I thought, what do I really want to do? And I thought about teaching. So first I started subbing and got my feet wet a little bit. And then as I moved along, I found that I really like working with special education kids. And I have kids that are on the spectrum, kids with emotional disabilities, kids with learning disabilities. I have a mixed bag. But I have seen so much change that, and when I went into the profession, people were going, are you nuts? People are leaving the profession like crazy and you're running toward it. Best thing I ever did.
So 25 years in mortgage banking, another example of a person who wanted to make the big bucks and become a school teacher. So, I can see, because that's a job where, it's challenging, and you have your wins and you have tough days and good days, but you don't really connect with people in a way that you do as a teacher, especially with children who need that much more compassion, time, space, and understanding.
And I'll tell you, you have to be flexible too. I've had one student, he told me, Miss Tendall, I'm not doing any work unless I can lay on a table and do it. I said, well, you know what? Lay on that table, buddy. He'd lay on the table and do his work, and that was it. And my principal came in one day, and I was just like, but you have to be flexible.
How many students do you have?
My maximum is 14.
Yeah.
But that's a maximum of 14. That's a really big class size.
That is a lot.
Well, I've had kids throw desks and everything else. So if you got 14 and one starts cutting up, yeah, you've got a situation.
So I always wonder, because, we're not in the classroom. We only hear about these things. And I always wonder, first of all, how do you keep the other kids safe, right? And how do you stare the kid who's acting out down so that they understand that you are the loving but responsible adult?
Sometimes you don't stare them down. Sometimes the best thing I can do is get behind them and hold them, give them security, and no, you don't stare them down all the time. They'll take that as a throwdown challenge.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So
Did some of this they cannot teach you. You had to learn as you go.
Yeah, you do.
A lot of this is on-the-job training,
It
is
is,
it
it
not?
really is.
Because these situations, nobody can plan on that for any kind of curriculum. But it pops up, it pops up.
Yeah, I had an older brother and 4 older sisters, so.
Okay.
So how old are your students?
Well, it's interesting you should ask. I have been teaching 9th through 12th grade. I had a mixed bag. This year I'm going to start, in fact, next week, teaching 4K. Developmental delays.
Really?
So this is a total, complete change. Somebody's laughing at me.
Somebody knows something.
You just pulled a hole in my beer moment, didn't you?
I'm excited, I am.
I think you are. And I don't think you're worried a bit.
I'm not.
I have a niece.
I fear no toddlers.
I have a niece who's 7, and she has Angelman syndrome, which is a rare genetic disorder. It's a seizure disorder, very, very busy, high electrical activity, nonverbal, ambulatory but nonverbal. And she goes to a public school that is the entire population are students with special needs of varying degrees, right? Extreme physical disability. Some of these children are on feeding tubes. It's an extraordinary place. And every single one of those teachers seems to have the ability to interact in the exact right way with every single one of those students, even though all of them have different needs, different diagnoses, they're different ages, different levels, different capabilities. And it's one of the most like I could cry. It's one of the most positive and life-affirming environments I've ever been in. And it's that way, not because the building is pretty or because the students are glad to be there, but because the teachers, like you, chose that. It was a passion choice. You don't fall into that career.
I would choose it all over again. I've never regretted a moment of it. Best thing I ever did.
What was your first day as a substitute teacher like?
Oh boy. My knees were knocking together. I was scared that day, I'm not gonna lie, but I don't know. I mean, like I had chaired meetings and different stuff like that, so I sort of just, I don't know. I really can't say. I just flew by the seat of my pants. I mean, I had a little lesson plan, and thankfully all the kids were happy to be there, and they were happy to have a sub because they thought we weren't going to do any work.
Oh, you're going to watch a movie.
Yeah, no, that didn't happen, but yeah. When I actually started teaching SPED, that was when it really got rolling for me.
And that's what, so you didn't realize that was where this decision was taking you. So what was the moment when the lights went on and you thought, this is where I'm meant to be?
I started working in the TMD, which is children with physical limitations, or I guess it's trainable, mentally disabled. I think they change stuff all the time, and that's when I really got my feet wet and started working with these kids, and I just thought, these kids are so amazing. So many people sell them short.
Yeah.
They have no clue what these kids can do. You know, they look at this child here and he's nonverbal or whatever, but you have no idea what lays behind that child.
No, it's so true. We see that Violet, my little niece, participated in Special Olympics last spring, and a contingent of students from her school they made the cut for the various teams, right? And so all the schools had little camps set up. You've been, so I know you know. So if you've never been to Special Olympics, each school has like its little tent pavilion and all the parent and family cheerleaders. And what was so extraordinary about it was there were a lot of people who came that day, friends and neighbors, to support media and local politicians, and the look of awestruck wonder on their faces, because it was that moment that they themselves realized. Yeah. You could see the realization, like the wave in a stadium, you could see the realization that they didn't think these kids could do it. And those kids they could do it. And with such joy, and it was so infectious. And the lesson there wasn't, because of course everyone was like, you got this, look at you won that race. That wasn't the lesson. The lesson was for everybody watching. Look at these kids.
Yeah.
Watch them win this race.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I watch them win every day, in big ways and small.
Well, Patti, I'm so glad that the mortgage industry lost you.
I don't miss it all.
Oh, I know you don't.
I
No,
don't.
because you're doing like heart and soul work now.
Like, I love to get up every day and go to work. I never have a day where I say, I don't want to go to work today.
That sounds like Bob, doesn't it?
It's exactly like Bob. Bob's always saying that. Let's get going, guys.
I can't wait to get up and go.
Yeah, let's go.
God put you where you were meant to be.
Yep.
Amen. That's
Absolutely.
Right.
You know?
That's right.
And I bet you don't have to do nearly as much horrible math and rejection now as you did
No.
in the mortgage business. Give it up for Patti.
Thank you very much.
When Kristin was a little girl, she saw her daddy's career as a school teacher. She understood the challenges. She understood the long hours and how her dad would sit at night grading papers and doing lesson plans. And the number of times she said, that will never be me, until it was.
What made you become a teacher?
Let's
Because
see.
it was a family business for Laurel.
It's a family
And
business.
Chris wanted to crash into things and not get arrested.
And the first two must have been embezzling from some sort of banking situation. There's no record
That's
of
not
that.
even their real names. You know, so.
Let's see. So I've been teaching. This is starting my 26th year in kindergarten.
Yes.
Ooh, yeah, thank you. But like others, my dad was a teacher. He was first a high school band director, and then he became a high school counselor. And see, I didn't know you were going to ask me about my parents. And yeah. Anyway, he passed away 3 years ago, so that's why I'm like,
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. But I learned, I hate this. I learned so much from him.
And he inspired you.
He did. Yeah.
And so you've spent your whole teaching career in kindergarten.
Yeah, all kindergarten, which is, I never grow up. I get to stay 5 and 6 years old forever. I've only taught in 2 different classrooms, actually, in the same district, which is unheard of nowadays. They move you around so much.
Yeah.
So I'm very lucky that I get to stay and do what I love. And
is it hard when Mike misbehaves to not sing the cleanup song?
Mike is amazing. I just said just
he
now
knows
as
all
we were
of his
waiting.
colors.
He can pass kindergarten. I said when we got married almost 24 years ago, he didn't know what he was signing up for as the spouse of a teacher, because the amount of work I bring home, he's right there saying, what can I staple for you? What can I, do? And the housework also, that kind of stuff.
So he does know the cleanup song. Good
does.
job.
The only time we kind of terrified him was when before we had children, he came and helped in my classroom. And I put him with the sweetest, kindest, smartest boy. Just the 2 of them sit together. The boy wouldn't talk to him and was staring at my husband, terrified. And then we saw that same boy actually in a pumpkin patch later on that year. And again, he hid from us and didn't want to. But I would see him every day at school.
So what is the first, because now you've had 26 kindergarten classes come through. So what is the first month of kindergarten like? Because these are feral raccoons that are in a classroom for the first time.
It's crazy. It is herding cats that are wet and slippery. It's baby steps to get through the first half hour of the day. Then the next half hour, and you just repetition and reminders of, and this is how you sit in a chair. This is where the chair faces. This is where you put your pencil. This is how you hold a pencil. We have students who have come in not having any school experience, or this last year I had 3 enter being able to read Harry Potter books.
Wow.
Doing multiplication on the first day of kindergarten.
Wow.
I was in that first.
That's why he didn't need kindergarten. He was driving the school bus for the older kids. Because I always wonder, a lot of the success of what happens at the end of that year in kindergarten was shaped by what happened in those 9 months of kindergarten.
Yeah.
Like I remember my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Parks, she was obsessed with the American Revolution. She named her dog Yankee Poodle.
I love that you remember all of that too.
Yeah.
Yankee
It was
Poodle.
Mrs. Parks. I'm a history nerd now. It was Mrs. Parks who somehow she taught us where to sit, how to sit, what to do with our hands. And also, I left kindergarten obsessed with George Washington crossing the Delaware. That's no small thing,
That's all you
right?
need to know in life, right?
Yeah. And my older brother had her, and it was the same thing. And I really believe that so much of what happens to you in first grade and beyond begins with what happens to you in kindergarten.
There's so much we do that it happens naturally when you've been doing it so long that you don't even think about it happening. You turn around and the kids are reading, and they are adding, they are subtracting, and you think back and how did that happen? But it does, and that's what's amazing.
That's such a magical moment when you see it come together for a child, and you get to see that over and over and over and over.
Yeah, I one year I had, I think it was about 30 students in my class.
That seems reasonable, by the way.
I had
35-year-olds.
There was a few years where it was 33, and my motto was 33 and me, because I didn't have any help in my class those years. It was on, and I didn't have parent helpers. That wasn't the area we lived in. So it was 33 students and me. This year was 30 students. And I remember because I had 3 students that entered kindergarten that year who knew 3 letters. I'm sorry, 13 students. I don't know what I said. 13 students who entered knowing 3 letters or less. So 13 out of 30. Wow. 30, half the class almost knew nothing. They came in. Things that happen, again, naturally, that you think a child is going to know what an A is called. These children didn't. They didn't. So going from that, and at the end of the year, the kids were reading, and it's amazing.
Because it is kind of a miracle. Like when you think about reading, there are these just like little random marks on a piece of dead tree that like come to life inside your imagination to see that first step. Like that would just...
Yeah.
That would be, well, since I know they don't pay you, that would be such a great reward.
I would do anything to help all of those students. By the end of the year, most of my students are writing to 100. The hard part is when the parents are already giving up on them, even at 5 and 6 years old. It breaks my heart. I mean, I've cried in front of parents many times. Like, I'm an emotional person, as you can tell. Parents saying to you, I don't know what to do. I can't help them. I don't have time. And you just want to take that child home with you. And, I say to them, what can I do to help you? How can I help you? What do you need from me? And they don't have an answer a lot of times.
People, it's so like I'm a social worker, and people often don't realize how hard it can be to just get through the day.
Yeah.
And your intentions can be amazing, but you come home and you're exhausted, and you got to feed them. You got to get them to bed. Here comes the lice letter, which goes out 4 times a year. And I think that so many parents have the best intentions and just not enough resources to deliver on it. And I know as a parent, I loved my girls' teachers. Like, okay, they're with you now for the next 8 hours, and I know they're in good hands. But to multiply that by 30 or 33, that's a lot.
It is a lot. I'm lucky that I do, as others have said, try to have a good relationship with those parents. Message me any time of day. Your work hours as a parent are not going to be the same as my work hours as a teacher. So if you need to send me a message at 2 a.m, do it. It's up to me, as I'll reply to you when I can. I think it's important to have that communication with the parents.
Do you agree with Laurel that if you don't want to be hugged and touched a lot, you probably should do something else?
It's all over. There's fluid and you don't think that you're gonna come home and tell stories to your family of things you've said during the day where it becomes don't lick the table, or your shoes need to stay on your feet, not on your hands. It's just amazing the things that the kids come up with. You think you've seen it all, and then the next day happens.
Do you do kindergartners do field trips where you teach?
Right now, we've been bringing them to us instead, because, like I said, our parent helpers aren't always around, so it's easier. We bring in puppet shows and wild animal experts, so it makes it a little easier right now. Yeah. Before, when we were able to go places, there was one instance where another class, not mine, but it was at my school, 2 parents connected on a field trip.
Connected.
And they
were enthusiastically...
They became a couple after the trip.
But not during.
Not during, but it was a crazy year because the 2 boys were in the same class, and one parent left a spouse even.
Oh, so they weren't single.
Yeah. So things crazy. These are the things you hear about.
Gosh, dating is hard. It never occurred
I
to me
didn't
to
know
go to kindergarten.
that's where you find the love connections.
Yeah.
Well, it's not my class.
So, I Before I came down here, my husband was like, "Now you make sure," because I catch everything. He's like, "Make sure you don't catch a cold or anything." I'm like, "I'm with teachers. They have the immune systems of."
That's the nice thing about teaching for 26 years, because the first couple years you're just constantly sick.
You're sick all the time.
All the time. It doesn't matter. I do think that wearing the mask, because I had to wear a mask to teach for how many years? 2 years? That
It had to be so hard though, because your facial expressions with little kids are so
It
much,
was the hardest.
right?
I will say that class though was the healthiest classes I've seen, honestly. But it was very difficult, especially when we were doing it online through the computer, because I couldn't hold a child's hand to teach them how to hold a pencil. And I would just look through a computer and say, "I'm sorry, try the best you can," and the kid's in tears, and like a grandparent is in the other room watching TV and isn't equipped to help them hold a pencil. And
Price is Right is a pretty good show.
that's
though.
true.
It's
The
fun.
numbers you could really learn,
You can learn a
that way.
little. I mean, that's how I knew how much rice-a-roni costs.
Exactly. I think that's important too.
Yeah, that's such an important realization that these kids are not, they don't have equal resources at home.
No, they don't.
Right?
And that's
it's
what's
not
nice
their
about
fault.
being in the classroom, is everyone is given the same, amount of attention and care in that. And with me for kindergarten, in 26 years, or 25 years, it's only 3.5 hours that they were with me. And then I run intervention groups in the afternoon. So this coming up year that we're starting, it'll be a full day kindergarten, so we'll have them for the full 7 hours. So that's going to be a huge change, and we're going to have sleepy little bodies.
Do they still do, do you do nap time or rest time?
We're going to have quiet time at the beginning and put on soft music, and if someone starts to snore and drool on the table, we'll just let them be.
Yeah.
Because that's what their body will need to get them through that first day of school.
One of the first grade teachers at my daughter's school said to me once, I don't even know what we were talking about. There had been like some lockdown drills and all that, which fact of life now, right?
Yeah.
And I said to this teacher, "I'm really sorry that this is your new reality." And she said, "The only thing that scares me is neurovirus."
Yeah. You've seen it all. Yeah. We've been through many lockdowns, so it's.
And you, as the teacher, you have to be the emotional strength,
the calm one,
and the calm one for
we're fine.
30 little people.
Yeah. And we've had real ones, not just the practice ones.
Yeah, the real
ones. In
ones.
the area that I've taught in. We've had people on campus that weren't supposed to be on campus, people with guns in the parking lot. It's just the area that I've taught in. It's not a
It's
safe
just
area.
the world now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the world. Like, you're kidding yourself if you think that
Yeah.
you somehow live in a place or send your kids to a school where these things can't happen. Like, it can happen everywhere. And we count on teachers in that moment. I mean, as a parent who's gotten the text messages from my daughter in a darkened classroom, hiding, my first thought was, "Oh my God, thank you, you're safe, stay safe." And my next thought was, "Your teacher."
Yeah, my job is to protect you, and if we have to huddle in a bathroom,
all of you,
all of us are going in there.
Yeah.
At least mine are little.
So what would you say, if you had to sum up, like, what is the single greatest lesson that 26 years with 5-year-olds day in and day out has taught you about life?
Patience in everything. And I think that would get us from the first day to the last day. And patience for the parents also. They're going through their own things. I don't know what their household is like. They don't know what it's like inside the classroom for the most part. And I think that will do wonders for the children. I think it's interesting for some parents that just drop them off the first day and don't think about what I don't know what I'm trying to say. How I'm supposed to come back to this. What those kids have gone through during the day with me during the school day, and then it's not making much sense.
But I understand, because it's so true. When your kids start school, that's the beginning of their life, and you're not the main character
Yeah.
in it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
that's the first amount of time that they are not with their parents.
Yeah.
And they are having a whole life that is separate from you, friendships, relationships, because they don't come home and tell you every single
No,
thing.
and
that
I tell my students, when you go home today, think of 3 things to tell your parents. And only one of them can be about recess, because that's what they're going to want to talk about. So 2 other things, and we'll go through ideas, and I'll give them suggestions. But that's what I want, and I'll send messages to the parents too. You know, your child's supposed to come home and tell you 3 things that they did today. Because if you just say, "How was school?"
Fine.
You're fine, good.
Whatever,
Yeah.
yeah,
Tell me 3 things.
Well, it sounds like you've had just the most amazing career and probably more hugs than all of us combined.
Totally.
But I will say, somebody missed out on driving the cross-country bus. Apparently, that's a good time,
We
too.
did have the bus pull up in front of, because kindergarten's always in the front of the school, and hit our fire hydrant. So, right,
Where were you?
right at kindergarten dismissal. So we had
Water everywhere.
like going forever. The kids wanted to go out and swim in it as they were walking out to go home, and
Chris is like, "You're welcome."
yeah, yeah. And then of course the bus driver. It's not my fault. Well, I don't think the fire hydrant moved.
It's water park day, kids.
Exactly.
Give it up for Kristin.
Everyone.
It has been such an amazing experience really getting to know some of our teacher winners. And this episode isn't the last one. Stick around because we have more teacher stories coming up in future Oddcasts. And you can hit our website at BOBANDSHERI.com. And as we head into a brand new school year, let's take a minute and really thank all of the men and women who stand in those classrooms with our kids every day. We'll see you on the next Oddcast.